Yes. With days away from the NFL season, we are just days away. And I really want to get into just my own perspective, my own opinion on the Georgia Bulldogs of the Philadelphia Eagles, the rising stars that are about to start this new era for the Eagles in 2023. I want to go over all that. Let's get into it.
Because I've seen enough horror movies to know any weirdo wearing a mask is never friendly.
We might call this a rant. We might call it a lot of different things here because I think there's a lot to talk about and what we're kind of expecting or what I'm really expecting going into the 2023 season, where this is a new era. This is a youth movement. This is the last 3 years of drafting, trades, maneuvers that Howie Roseman has done, especially with contracts and salary cap and making these cap hits less every single year and really keeping not only your financial foundation to this team, but really just, having these undrafted free agents make the team and obviously drafting stars or, hopefully that are going to become that. And I think the slander that we've been hearing the most, I don't know why, because I feel like we talk about everybody else. I feel like Nakobe Dean, and we talked about this on the shakedown a little bit last night, and it kind of got me thinking a little bit like, it is kind of right. I feel like a lot of fans are not big on the Kobe Dean this year. And look, I understand that 100%. You got a new defensive coordinator this year that I hope is going to be very strategic, is going to create ways to disguise coverages and, create pressure on quarterbacks and, becomes a feared defense that he really wants this defense to be. So very excited for Sean Desai. But obviously getting the Kobe Dean as a third-round pick and not much of a huge sample size last year. See, if Nakobe Dean played a few full games or something like that, as much as I wasn't a big fan of TJ Edwards and Kaiser White so much last year, really Kaiser White, I like TJ Edwards a lot, but Kaiser White, I mean, I figured that Nakobe Dean could really just play for him last year. There was one week where Kaiser White had an ankle injury, and I was really hoping Nakobe Dean was going to get some reps. There's been issues. I mean, I know people are, he can't tackle, he's undersized, he can't tackle big running backs. He gets run over easily, blah, blah, blah. He takes on blocks too easily, can't get off blocks, So, I mean, there was just a lot of rumors from, at least from Eagle fans that, watched Nakobe Dean for a long time. And I feel like, he was in that room with Nick Rallis last year and really sponged everything up, okay? Didn't get as much playing time. Usually when we were up by multiple touchdowns, he would get some playing time. He obviously played special teams last year. Going into this season, this offseason that just passed by, okay, going into the offseason, the Eagles obviously knew on their minds, and Howie Roseman knew on their minds that Nakobe Dean was going to be the starting linebacker here. That was already going into the plans of everything. So I really wasn't surprised that they let go of Kaiser White. I wasn't surprised that they didn't re-sign TJ Edwards because this was Sean Desai's new defense, and obviously he wants more coverage guys, and I understand. Obviously, there's a couple, at least one game that really stood out to me with Nakobe Dean was really, well, even last year was that Tennessee Titans game, tackling Derrick Henry with one arm. And, I think he's one of those linebackers that's not hesitant. He keeps all the players accountable. Obviously seen that from Georgia a lot. Like if somebody blows a coverage, or he keeps everybody accountable. But people won't take it seriously. They'll not take it seriously, but people will, players that he plays with respect him so much. So going into obviously this offseason, Nakobe Dean was going to get thrown to a lot on his plate here. Sean Desai even said as soon as, Nakobe Dean, was, he started as a middle linebacker throughout OTAs and training camp. They threw everything at him. Okay. And so far, what we're hearing from the other players is that he's taken that leadership role very nicely. And, I think it's going to be I think this is going to be the first time we're going to be signing a linebacker in a long time when Nakobe Dean's contract is up in a few years. I think I don't want to go too far with it, but I feel like, he will be a Pro Bowler every year. It might not happen this year too much, but you never know what could happen. You know what I mean? I think he's going to play really well. I think he's going to blitz the gap really well. I think his coverage is going to be good. I think he's very smart. Obviously, he studied engineering. So guys that study engineering, guys are really smart when it comes to the playbook and just football in general. And I think, we have to, this is more of a wait and see approach. But I don't blame people that really aren't going to go off the rails on Nakobe Dean too much. Like, I get it because we haven't had a big sample size with him. He didn't get much playing time last year. You know what I mean? So if he played a few games and say, oh, okay, cool. Reed Blankenship had a nice sample size last year, and we got to say, hey, maybe there's something there. But there was really enough with Reed to really go off of. With Nakobe Dean, there really wasn't enough to go off of last year. You know what I mean? So they gave him, the green light. They gave him that opportunity to become a leader. And obviously they haven't took him off middle linebacker since OTAs. He hasn't been taken out of position at all yet. So I understand that linebacker is very thin right now. I think all people really talk about is, we only have 3 linebackers and blah, 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 which there's obviously more to that, why they only kept 3 linebackers, because obviously you're going to have some defensive ends are going to play off the ball linebackers at Sam or at Will, whatever you want to do with some of these guys. Okay. Hopefully not with everybody. I hope with specific players that have the skill set to do it and don't, I think that one of the big reasons, even with Hassan Reddick last year, I felt like early in the season, they put him off in coverage way too much. And he probably would have had close to 30. I'm not even kidding. He probably would have had close to 30 sacks. No joke. Because I think he would have done more damage than none, So I feel like with Nakobe Dean, there's a lot of good things to take away. And I feel like I'm not going to be overly – I feel like in the pit of my stomach that he's going to play really well. But for me, like, I'm not going to go overboard on it. I'm not going to hype him up too much. And I really haven't hyped him up too much this offseason. I think he's done a really good job. Even throughout camp, sometimes when we're hearing reports of open camp from the beat writers when they're at practice, we didn't really hear much from Nakobe Dean at that time. And we're kind of like, what's going on with Nakobe Dean? Is he playing good? Is he playing bad? Obviously, you go into that Browns preseason game, and they're backed up to the goal line, and Nakobe Dean goes right in there, makes a tackle in the backfield, and forces a fumble. And that's the type of player he is. And I think when it comes to all these guys as well, is you have to give it some time, like a game or two. These guys got to warm up. You know what I mean? I understand joint practices is joint practices and you're facing another team in another jersey. But when we're in game mode, it's going to be a totally different story. Okay, so with Nakobe Dean, I feel like we really have to give him time. I don't think it's going to take much. I feel like he's going to immediately impact this defense regardless. I'm hope I'm not wrong, but I feel like, he has been not the favorite from a lot of Eagles fans around. Feel like all we talk about is Jalen Carter. All we talk about is Nolan Smith. All we talk about is some of these other guys. But Nakobe Dean is a big part of this defense for the future, at least, because at the end of the day, besides Christian Ellis that misses open field tackles here and there, and I think has become a very good product going forward as more of a project, but not too much. I think, there's something there with him, which I think we just have to give it more time. And honestly, Zach Cunningham was a brand new signing, he led the league in solo tackles like 3 years ago. I know that was a long time ago, but, he's dealt with injury. He was a cap casualty for the Titans. He was a big free agent prospect for them when he signed there, but health was the main issue. Really, he wasn't even here for like a week and a half, and he was already put out of a preseason game already. And for the finale preseason game, he wasn't even playing, which means Zach Cunningham really, for the short amount of time he was here, got guaranteed himself a roster spot. So with Nakobe Dean, I think it's just something we have to give a little bit of time to. And I feel like, we have to give it more credit. And obviously, we have to see what these games look like and what Sean Desai and how he uses him. And I think that's important. But I think you got a prime player here. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He thought he should have been a first round pick, and he got drafted in the 3rd round. So all these guys are playing with chips on their shoulders. But the mentality that he has, as well as these other guys that are on this team, it fits right in. And I think that Nakobe Dean might be the next, leader of this defense going forward for the youth movement. And, as important as it is, we don't value linebackers. So it'd be nice if, for once in our damn lives that they actually pay a guy, I'm not saying top money, but we'll see. If he plays well, you're going to have no choice but to pay him at this point. So very excited for Nakobe Dean to see what his future is, and we'll see when the season starts. Obviously, Jalen Carter has been a wrecking ball. Okay, besides obviously the off-the-field issues that I feel like every time, Jalen Carter does great things, they always have to put him down every single time or talk about, even the first preseason game when he, what he did against the Ravens. And then, they had to talk about all the crap that happened. I don't know if it's entertainment or they just like to slam these players for their pass or whatever. The best decision that the Eagles made made was to draft Jalen Carter, and I wasn't worried one bit about it, okay? A lot on his mind in the offseason, going into OTAs, and really these veterans, the mixture of veterans and young guys, the veterans kind of keep those young guys intact and keep them energized. But, these young guys are just Jalen Carter has just been he's been a monster. He's been guards can't block him. He's unblockable. I know people are comparing him to Reggie White. People comparing him to a lot of, all-time Hall of Fame greats, but I want him to be his own person. I want him to signify his own independence on this team as a significant player that we have for years to come here. You know what I mean? And I feel like, and I said he was going to be an immediate impact. I said that going into training camp, he's going to get recognized real quick. Okay, he's knocking Pro Bowlers on their ass. He's being disruptive. Guards have to try to, no one could handle him. Plays with grit, plays with just anger, plays with aggression, just plays with a nasty pushback attitude that it's so intoxicating to see that in a guy like this. And this might be the best player in the draft. The Eagles were just in the Super Bowl, and I think the Eagles got the number one player. Obviously, with Will Anderson, we'll see how he does with the Texans. But to be honest with you, this right here is got to be the best move the Eagles made in a long time. Plus, the Eagles have put 2 first-round talents at defensive tackle. You know what I mean? Because really, at the end of the day, Fletcher Cox is now starting to sign these one-year deals. He's coming back, whatever. And your future's in the trenches right here. And with Jalen Carter, I feel like not only are you getting a guy that is just aggressive on the field, but even going into that Browns preseason game, the guy's watching film. The guy loves football. He's a football junkie, and he's watching film on potentially a couple guys he could be facing on that side. You know what I mean? So he'll study what their weaknesses are, and I thought that was a really cool thing to see from Jalen Carter. And I know the NFL has him as the next defensive rookie of the year. I get it, and I don't really care about that. He says he wants to be that. I also get that as well, but it's not the most important thing. This is a team game, and if he gets that, if he gets that ribbon, then that's perfectly fine. But if he doesn't, and look, I don't expect him to get double-digit sacks, but I feel like he can. I feel like he'll have 10, 11 sacks this year if it's possible. You know what I mean? And I feel like there's a lot more to it. But with Jalen Carter, you're getting a guy. I feel like some guys that get drafted to certain teams, it really depends on the coaches around certain players and where the team is at, okay? The Eagles got a number 1 talent in this past draft, okay? Usually teams in the top 10 don't have good defensive lines, don't have good defenses. Obviously, the Eagles made some changes to their defense this year with a few players leaving, but really getting some good quality players in, and you're drafting players that are starting. You know what I mean? And that's a fantastic thing. So I can't say that that Jalen Carter is not the real deal. He is the real deal. We've heard so much about him at practice already to the point where it's so overwhelming. You're just dying to see him in an actual game where his statistics are going to count. And I think that's awesome. You know what I mean? So I was never worried about Jalen Carter going into this year. And, obviously everybody needs to stay healthy. Carter needs to. And I think he's just, I'm sorry, but it's going to come to a point where how did other teams let the Eagles get him? And that's going to be, teams were turned off by the offseason stuff and passed on him most likely. Okay, and the Philadelphia Eagles, you know how we love to give second chances, and I'm all for that when it comes to – I think everyone always deserves a second chance. We've done it a million times, and sometimes it's worked out for the good. Sometimes it's worked out for the bad. It just depends. But I think with the support system that Jalen Carter has with this team, by the way how emotional he was when he got drafted, this was the moment where this was the best spot for Jalen Carter. The ultimately best spot he could have been drafted to. I think the emotion of tears he had at the draft not was just because he was drafted, but because he was drafted to the Philadelphia Eagles, to be with Nakobe Dean, to be with Nolan Smith, to be with Jordan Davis. Jordan Davis was a big mentor to him back in Georgia and looked up to him, kind of kept him in line a little bit. And I feel like, I'm not really sensing a troublemaker here. I'm not really sensing much of anything bad with him so far. Like, I feel like he's just in a really good situation. I mean, look, you saw the Philadelphia Eagles video. They had the Georgia guys all sitting having dinner together and just talking about before what training camp's going to be like, and the video they took before camp and stuff. I thought that was awesome. I think that camaraderie, that brotherhood that they have, really makes a huge difference going forward. And I think he's going to be a monster. I think he's going to be unstoppable, relentless. He is going to be a problem. And I don't know how offenses are going to attack this defense, especially in the trenches with this line. If he doesn't get double-digit sacks, I could care less. If he gets pressures on the quarterback, if he has multiple quarterback hits, that's all that matters, because now offensive lines are going to have to pick their poison of who are they going to double team. Is it going to be Jalen Carter? Is it going to be Jordan Davis? So I totally get it. So with Jalen Carter, I think obviously the most exciting player going into this year. There's no doubt. I'm definitely going to take a look at him, and I can't wait. I can't wait to see what the future has for Jalen Carter, and I can't wait till the statistics are going to be real, and this is going to be like it. This starts the era of a new age for the Eagles. Especially with Jalen Carter being here is fantastic, and I think it's awesome. Lastly, Nolan Smith. Obviously, Nolan Smith is just one of the biggest surprises here. And I feel like I don't want to be so selfish to say that, man, I want to keep him as an edge rusher, because I feel like as much people think he's another guy, everyone thinks he's undersized. And I think what's really going to get him is his bend, his athleticism. And he's just one of those guys that you cannot waste keeping him as a pure edge rusher. I've said this a million times. Now, I was kind of against it in the beginning, but I said, you know what? If the kid is that smart that he can, because he's a rookie, you don't want to put him in too many positions and just keep. I was kind of on that in the beginning, okay? But then I started to think, like, if this guy can handle it, why not? It's just going to make our defense better, and Sean Desai is not going to do what Gannon did last year and set up your players to fail in certain situations. That was the biggest problems we had last year, not only not being a first-half team, making adjustments in the second half, and then going to another game where you're dealing with the same problems you have been with this defense in the first half of every damn game, but setting your players up for success where you're not putting them in a bad situation, where you have a coach here in Sean Desai that knows the strengths and weaknesses of every single player on this team, okay? And they throw everything at every player. They're giving every player an opportunity to become a starter, whether there wasn't any first string, second string, third string with Sean Desai's defense going into OTAs to training camp. There was none of that. He said he's giving everybody an opportunity. He's a coach that doesn't play favorites, which is probably one of my favorite things, because I thought Jim Schwartz did that, so I kind of want to go into a realm of we need guys that, and honestly, out of all defensive ends, Nolan Smith has had one of the best 40 times in a long time, a 4.3, whatever it was. I mean, I understand 40 times aren't a big deal, but obviously when you see a guy that's that athletic like that, you put him in a wide 9 where you can line up Nolan Smith all the way to the outside, you're going to make that tackle real nervous, because Nolan Smith will figure out if he's going to go inside, outside, and his bend around the edge is so good. His technique is so good. Look what he did on that reverse, in preseason. One of those really fast receiver getting that reverse catches up to him, and that's when he had that shoulder injury, but he caught up to him. And the athleticism is just off the charts. If I'm going to use Nolan Smith even as an off-the-ball linebacker, because this is why everyone's like, we only have 3 linebackers. We need to sign Patrick Queen. We need to do – this is why they only have 3 linebackers. That's why they can substitute. See, the more players that could do multiple things, the less you have to put so much into one position where you need to have 5 linebackers or something like that, which you don't need. Because you only have 3 linebackers right now, they've done sweat off-ball linebacker coverage. They've used Nolan Smith the same exact way. And I think Nolan Smith and Hassan Reddick has done it in his past. He's done it with Carolina. He's done it, obviously, with Arizona. He's done it before. As much as I really want him to hunt more on the edge and stay at it as a pure edge rusher. So I'm kind of see what Sean Desai is doing with him. Josh Sweat's another one that can go in coverage, but I feel like Nolan Smith in general, just have him hunt at the line to scrimmage. Nakobe, I just imagined if they just put Nakobe D in there, Nakobe D in the middle. You have Nolan Smith as the the Sam linebacker, and you just have him just hovering over the line. Just imagine you're so deep right now on the defensive line that you can have Nolan Smith just peeking inside, just you know what I mean, and just I think it's going to be unstoppable. I really do. That's why I'm so excited for it. I believe this team can get over 70 sacks this year. There is no doubt about it. Do I really care about it? No, but I mean, I feel like you have more firepower this year. You still have like 3 other players that had double-digit sacks last year. I mean, really the biggest piece you lost on this defensive line was Javon Hargrave, which I think they have complemented very well because obviously Javon Hargrave was not really he was a great pass rusher, but he wasn't really good against the run. I think even with Jalen Carter now, I think you have a nice balance of both and some aggression in there as well. So with Nolan Smith, I feel like with him, I feel like it's going to be used in different ways. I'm perfectly fine with that. God forbid there's an injury at linebacker, Nolan Smith has to go there full time. You know what I mean? So that the more positions you know, and the more, not even just know, but if you could play multiple positions and play them well, you're going to have a lot of value to an NFL franchise like the Philadelphia Eagles. And hopefully, Sean Desai is here for a long time and coaching these guys up and making this one of the most feared defenses, which I think it's going to be. I know the outside looking in, a lot of other fans or from other fan bases or news outlets in general are looking at the Eagles. Oh, they lost too many pieces on defense, the blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's all I really hear. But the draft process, the more you draft well, the less you have to spend on free agents. Okay. And I think that's a big part of it. You don't build your team through free agency. That's a big no-no. And we've done that before. And depending, when you're spending money and draft picks, because people that follow Howie Roseman and what they do, the Rams did it with Matthew Stafford when they won their Super Bowl, and look at them now. They're a complete disaster right now. So, Nolan Smith, I feel like is going to get better over time. I think with Nolan Smith, it comes down to how he beats players on field is going to be his athleticism, and that's going to be the number one thing with him. He's been working his tail off this whole entire offseason, okay? You brought in championship players, okay? Winning national championship players to this team on top of a team that's already hungry for another one right now. Obviously, we haven't won one since 2017, and last year I think this is the biggest revenge tour for the Eagles this year. I think they planted their seed last year, and Howie Roseman is staying aggressive. He's locking players up. We're drafting well. We're trading well. We're signing free agents that are playing immediately, and undrafted guys are literally the coaching is just fantastic. The scouting department has been fantastic. You know what I mean? So there's a lot going on for this team right now. And even with Nolan Smith, yeah, I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. And I think, to be honest with you, he'll be a 6 to 8.5 sack guy this year. Or he might be more than that. Give it time. Because who knows? He might have more sacks as a linebacker than a defensive. Who knows? As long as, whether it's Jordan Davis, whether it's Jalen Carter, whether it's Nolan Smith, whoever it is on that defensive line, as long as they give pressure and they're making the quarterback move up, as long as Nolan Smith, does his job right, gets to the outside, makes the quarterback go inside, helps the defensive tackles out to get more pressure, moving that quarterback up in the pocket to get popped, I'm perfectly fine with that. It's always helping out another player on the defensive line, the success for another player. You know what I mean? So I think it's really important, and I'm just so excited. Nolan Smith's been practicing the past few days already. He's looked better, and he's looking 100% healthy now. So I'm very excited for him, and man, I'm the youth is just so exciting, and I absolutely love it. And I think going down the line too with guys like Jordan Davis is another one, which really needs he was a top 13 defensive tackle last year going into, before he got the high ankle sprain. But I figured with him, this is the second year now. Maybe he lost a little bit of weight, gained a little bit of muscle. He looks more explosive. So I can't really complain about it. I can't really complain about it too much, but I'm very excited for this defensive line in general. I think there's a lot of players here that, we're just waiting to see what they could do, where the statistics are going to count. I think it's going to be unstoppable. I'm a loss for words of what this is going to look like. I really am, and I'm really excited. The Kobe Dean slander needs to stop. I understand you don't want to overhype him, but just stay in the middle. Stay at the mid-tier ground with him and just see what happens. I feel like we're going to get something really good out of him going forward. And like I said, I think there's a little bit more pressure on Howie Roseman too, because you drafted 2 defensive tackles in the first round, and Jordan Davis really needs to stay healthy. On top of it, health-wise is great. You have a bye week, you get the short week over with between weeks 2 and 3. I think, from a Thursday night game to a Monday night game to a Thursday night game or whatever it is. I forgot the schedule. I haven't looked at it in so long. I'm kind of forgetting about it already. But yeah. Let me know what you guys think. Who is the most excited Georgia Bulldog you are excited for going into the 23 season? And do you think Nakobe Dean is getting too much slander from the fans? How do you feel about him going forward? And if you guys haven't subscribed to the channel, if you lasted this long, subscribe to the channel, like the video. It does help out the channel a lot. And thank you for all the support you guys have been giving me this whole entire offseason. I hope you guys have enjoyed all the offseason videos. Now we're coming down to the meat and potatoes of the season, which is the regular season. So you guys have a fantastic day. I'll see you guys on the next one. Much love to everybody. Shake Squad up, follow slide. Peace out, guys. Peace.